Yeah.
Honestly, at the age of 15, I was drinking every day at school. I was starting to do some pretty heavy drugs. In fact, I didn't know I was pregnant until I was about 3 months in.
Welcome. We're on, and today with my guest, Melanie Frome on I'm Too Old for This Shit podcast. I'm Angie, and I guess I'm too old to take any kind of shit now, and so are my guests. If you don't know me, I'm Angie, and the founder of angies.com, which is angie-s.com, link in the show notes. I'm a health and skincare consultant where I help women who don't fit into the extremes implement healthier habits that don't manage them. I'm about tips and tricks that work, make sense, and help you stay on top of it without making you bored to tears. We're talking what you eat, put on your skin, and do to feel your best, whilst keeping it fun and irreverent, because I know you are all very busy. We're all busy. So I started this podcast because I really want to talk about well-being beyond food, skincare, and meditation. I want to have guests who can share their wisdom on relationships, sex, dating, owning a business, mental health, basically all of the things that I'm excited about, curious about, and seriously probably lack skills in sometimes. Now, I truly hope you find this useful and helpful. So before I introduce Melanie to you, I want to just explain something that you're going to come across in the episode when we are covering the body positivity scam. Now, just like in any interviews, it's impossible to cover everything that you want. There are time restrictions, but we are going in from the angle of the plus sizes. So, because we were talking based on Melanie's experience, the health issues she had when she used to be bigger. Now, the body positivity scam is, in my opinion, goes both ways. It doesn't matter if people are being pushed to lose a lot of weight, that's beyond their body's natural capacity, and it's not healthy anymore. And to the side as well, where women feel that they have to have curves and they feel they have to push themselves and get bigger and go up in size, and it's a real issue now. So I've been both. I've been too small, too skinny, and I have also experienced being overweight. I wasn't overweight in the sense where people were worried for my heart, my life, but even then, I was already experiencing discomfort, and I knew how I felt in my mind and my spirit and my attitude towards food and how I was using food to numb me. And so even then, I don't take it lightly, when people are. So I don't think it's a topic to take on lightly, and definitely not to glorify anything that requires someone to push their body to an extreme, whether it's going up in sizes or going down in sizes. We should just be allowed to be the size that's comfortable for us, for our body, that's healthy for us. So I'm happy they've got more of a spectrum in the media, in the fashion industry, and I think it's important to represent different body types and different heritage, and just show everything, just show the spectrum of human nature. But to me, it's not body positivity if you have plus size model or smaller or the smaller size models who are worried to fluctuate in weight because they will lose their gig. Plus size models are having now the same issue as the smaller size models, where if they lose weight, they lose the gig. They don't get work. So to me, that's not body positivity if you have to fit in a certain box. If your boobs have to be a certain size and your waist a certain size and your hips a certain size, that's not body positivity. None of us are that symmetric all of the time or any time. So this is why, I think it's a scam, this whole body positivity, because if you still have to fit in a box, and if you can't put on weight without fearing of losing your work, just is so important. Just do what's best for you. Just do what's best for you. You know, everyone's quote unquote perfect way or healthy way is different. And don't let yourself be influenced by anyone else. And if you're happy where you are, then that's fine. Doesn't matter what size you are. If you're happy where you are and you know what's going on, that's it. So there you go. So that's my, I don't know what you call it. It's maybe a rant. I didn't mean to, sorry. But I wanted to say it. It's important. Yeah, just really, just be happy. Oh my God, so important. It's not easy. I get a lot of bad days. But if overall you're moving forward, and just don't let the critiques hold you back so much. And I know it's hard. I find it difficult too sometimes, but you've just got to keep it pushing. Just got to keep it pushing because life is short, honey. Life is super short. All of a sudden, bam, you're 40. Bam, you're 80. If you're lucky. So just go and do the best you can for you. That's all you can do. So, okay, I hope you really find this episode helpful. Okay, now I'm going to introduce Melanie to you. So today I want to talk about the topic of bouncing back. And I wanted to bring Melanie Frome on, not just because I love this woman and I feel that she's a kindred spirit. I brought her on because she's been through some trials and tribulations and just really knows how to bounce back. Like, this woman bounces back without becoming cynical. Like, that in itself is a feat. She gets very honest and raw in this, I can't say the word, but you know what I mean, RAW, raw, in this interview, but she really knows how to keep it light and does not take herself too seriously. So I really hope that you enjoyed this episode, and please join me in giving Melanie a big, warm welcome. So without further ado, hi, Melanie. I'm so excited to have you on today.
Hi, Angie. I'm so excited for this interview. We were talking about it a couple of months ago, and it's happening. Woo-hoo!
I know, it is happening now. That's it. You are on. So, no, this is great because, I mean, for those of you who don't know Melanie Frome, I've spoken with her a little while back and really loved what she had to say because she is someone who's bounced back and, you know, just gone and marched to her own drum and has like a really nice balance of spirituality, yoga, and at the same time fun. Like, she keeps it real. I see her a little bit as a kindred spirit. So I just can't wait to introduce Melanie to you all. So Melanie, could you please introduce yourself, sort of where you live, what you do, like
sure.
your
Well,
story?
First, I do have to agree. When we first talked, I was like kindred spirit, soul sister from somewhere. So first, I want to put that out there. We had so much in common and so many similar ways of thinking and looking at life. So that was really cool when that took place. But as for me, I was originally born in Scotland and I'm now living in Canada. But for how much longer, that is now uncertain. So I keep bouncing, as you said. I've had an interesting journey that has led me to yoga and Pilates and other movement therapies. So I'm a teacher. And it was my own health journey that brought me to that place. And I do have a full-time day job where I'm juggling the corporate gig with my passion projects. I'm a mom of a 24, almost 25-year-old, which is kind of making me realize he's a quarter of a century years old. And I must admit, I've had a very interesting life that has given me some amazing life lessons, which I don't necessarily want to repeat, but some amazing life experiences. And I'm grateful for the place that I am now, but also where I continue to journey through to.
No, that's great. I want to sort of dive a little bit into what you just said. So can you tell us a little bit sort of the different countries you've lived in? Because you've moved around a bit, and the story what you've done as well.
Well, first, when I tell people where I've lived, the first thing they think is, are you an army brat? And the answer is no. I was born in Scotland and I was given up for adoption at birth. And I was adopted by a German father and an Irish Canadian mother who were living in London, England at the time. So they drove up to Scotland, picked me up, lived in London till I was about, I think, 5. And while we were there, they actually had their biological child, my younger brother. And then we ended up moving to Germany. And we were there till I was about 13 or so, 14. And my mom was getting homesick for Canada. So my dad put in a transfer with his company. And then we spent like 4 months living in Salt Lake City, Utah, while he got trained for the new job. And then we ended up in Brampton, and just outside of Toronto in Canada. And I've moved a lot in that space as well. But those are some of the countries I've grown up in. But while we lived in Germany, we did a lot of traveling, part of my dad's job. And so I visited probably just about every country surrounding Germany, from Switzerland to Austria, Italy. And I go back a lot to the Europe in the past few years to visit my biological family, who I'm in touch with.
Oh, wow.
And yeah. So that's kind of my journey on the countries I've lived in and how I got there. And now looking at a possible prospect of moving to the US, to Pittsburgh.
Okay. So a couple of things. One is, I don't know if this is appropriate to ask or not, but how long have you been in touch with your biological family, and how
ask anything about this, because it's a very open story, and it's an incredible story. In 2001, my birth mother and I found each other through the most bizarre circumstances, and we've been friends ever since. And she was my maid of honor at my second wedding. I've been married twice. And she's met my parents that raised me, and I call mom and dad. And she's actually a really important part of my life now. And then the year after, when I went to Scotland for the first time since being born there, we found my birth father. We had been told by the friends that they had known growing up together that he had died. But we actually found him alive, and we found that he had a son through another woman. So I have a half brother, and I'm in touch with my half brother. My birth father unfortunately passed away last year, the night before my 40th birthday, believe it or not. And but he and I were close over the years since we met. And I'm just lucky that I have parents who raised me to know that I was adopted, and that adoption is an act of love, and so precious experiences that have come through this. Watching my mom and my birth mom hug and cry for the first time is movie epic worthy. So
wow, yeah, I'm stunned. And sorry to hear about your dad for last year. I mean, it's it's amazing what you just said, because it's true. Like, adoption, I think it is like, I mean, I don't have a personal experience of it, but when you see sometimes some places, and you can tell like the parents can't look after them, and they give, their children up for adoption, and the child has a much better upbringing that they could never give, is, it's not an easy thing to do, and to part with your child. I can't even imagine it. So, but the fact that you've met them, and it's been sounds like just a really healthy, loving reunion.
And for me, it answered questions I didn't even know I had.
Yes.
I don't physically look like anyone in my adopted family. And meeting my birth mom, I finally looked like someone. And meeting my half brother, even though we only share a father and we had a completely different upbringing, if we hang out enough, we start finishing each other's sentences. And so I've got such a huge appreciation for this idea of nature versus nurture, the things that are in our genetic code, and not just things like health issues, which is something I want to bring up as well, because my birth father died of a heart attack, and he had like 5 heart operations. And that was one of the things that triggered my, journey to change my life around from when I had my own health issues. But it's also understanding that in our genetics, when we talk with our hands, that's a genetic thing. We don't learn that. And I like white chocolate. My birth mom loves white chocolate. No one else I know likes white chocolate. So it answered questions about who I was, where I came from. And as an adopted child, you don't want to think that your parents broke up because of you or that you ruined a relationship. You don't want to carry any of those guilts. And for many years, I didn't know the story, the background. And when I found out my story, my background, it lifted a burden I didn't know I was carrying, if that makes any sense at all.
No, it does. It does. It does. I mean, yeah, no, it does. Because I have that thing about my father. Like, I grew up with my mom. So, but there are loads of things, like you said, when you don't, I mean, obviously genetically, I'm 50% from my mom, but there's the other 50% that I can't see anywhere in the family. And that's because I don't have that side. So I can completely understand that you, if you must have felt this, like coming home and like this identity and see yourself in someone else. There's something to that that's quite, it's quite a primitive feeling that you can't construct it. You can't make it, it's just one of those things that just happens.
Yeah.
No, that's wonderful. So okay, so you dropped a little bomb as well. I mean, you dropped a few bombs, but you mentioned that you were married twice. Is that divorced twice as well?
Yes, divorced twice.
And so no, but I love the fact that you like. One of the things I love about you is that you have lived, and probably a lot more than we'll ever cover in this one interview. But I love that you sound so positive and optimistic, and we'll touch on the health scares you had as well. But how, so I'm 40. I know you mentioned that you definitely passed. You 40 plus, or you 40 like me?
I will be 41 in May.
Okay, so
next month.
Okay, great. So what I love about you is that, you've been married twice, divorced twice, but you're out there, you stay positive. Can you just tell us a little bit about what you've learned from, being married twice and divorced twice? Because divorce is hard from what I hear from my friends. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, my first marriage, I was very young. I was 16, and it was an abusive marriage. It was over within a year. But what I learned from that was, even though I was a young mom, so I also had my son at the age of 16, I was putting my own safety second. And once the abuse started towards my son, somewhere I found this crazy Amazon warrior woman, and I had the courage to leave. But if I did not have my son, I don't know what that would have looked like. It was my mother instincts or whatever that came out, even at that young age, that said, okay, this is not the place to be. Get out now. And so at a young age, I recognized that within each of us is this fire, this spark. And even when we don't see it or feel it, it doesn't ever go out, no matter what is done to us by others or said to us. We just have to find that place where we can tap into that fire and let that spark fuel us to move forward. And it took me a long time to realize that this was it. I think I was going through the motions when I was 16, but now at my age, I can look back and go, whoa, this is how long the fire's been around. I just didn't understand it back then.
Yeah.
Second marriage happened 10 years after. It took me many years to be comfortable with men again after that time. But I found a wonderful man, and it happened so fast. So fast. We were engaged within 3 weeks of meeting,
what?
And then we got married.
Wait.
Oh,
Okay. Because first of all, sorry to interrupt you, but like I was even just gonna go into like your first marriage, like, because being married at 16, that's very young. I mean, I don't think my mom would have. I mean, everyone's different, obviously. I know that had I come home and said I'm getting married, that just I don't even know what she would have said. So I think that's
well, my parents insisted on being married. They did not want me living with this man unless I was married. My parents are very, very religious, and I love them for their belief in it, but they were the ones that pushed for the marriage.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense now. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I had the opposite. I would have been okay just to live together, but they wanted me to be married.
Yeah.
And because I had a child, I understand why they wanted that for me.
Yeah.
And it didn't work. And then I got married a second time, and it still didn't work. In fact, my longest lasting relationship to date has been the one where, according to their religion, I was living in sin. And the second marriage fell apart for different reasons. One, we just rushed into it without the information. He hadn't healed properly from his previous marriage as well. And there was some complications with his ex-wife and his son and his mother. And what I learned from that was, first of all, it's actually possible to get a very cheap divorce doing it yourself if you can actually be adults and respect each other. We only paid for the actual processing papers at the courthouse. We didn't pay for any lawyers. We didn't spend months arguing. It was amicable. And I realized that divorce itself can cost you just a couple $100. But people spend months and thousands of dollars fighting over stupid shit. Like, who gets the bed sheets? I want the kids on Easter weekend. Well, I want the kids on, like, you don't have to drag it out. And I think if we can pause enough and recognize that the journey with each other has come to an end and lose the resentment, life can be so much easier.
Yeah.
When I tell people how much my divorce was actually cheaper than my wedding. So by a significant amount, but also my wedding was like $2,000. We did it in his backyard.
Yeah.
So that's what I learned from the second divorce.
And you got engaged within 3 weeks. And how quickly did you get married after that?
We got engaged in December of 2004 and got married in August 2005.
And how long did you stay married for?
I left him 2 years after.
Okay. But so I love what you were saying about, how, people make it so complicated and build all that resentment.
Yes.
And I see it with friends, and I see it, it gets really ugly really quickly, and
Yes.
it's dragged out, which doesn't make it easier. And I find that even when I've never been married, but I've had relationships, and when you break up, the last thing you want is being arguing over things. You just want to have a clean. You just want to. You need to heal. So you need to not be around the person. You need to not be arguing. You need to not be talking with them. You need to heal and build yourself back up. So I can't even imagine how destructive it can really be when people are, when divorces get so ugly, because they're reminded every single day, and especially when they have kids involved, it's they can't get away. They can't run away from that person. And people do crazy things and say horrible things and do worse things when they're that hurt. So yeah, I love your $200 solution. But I guess you weren't sharing children, right? So that's also makes it.
That made it much easier.
Yeah.
But I lived with him for 2 years. I was stepmom to his little guy, and he was just a toddler.
Oh.
So I did have attachment.
Of course.
But at the end of the day, there was no fight over the child, and it made me realize that when it comes to material things, from things like the house or cars or the TV or your grandma's china, grandma's china might be the exception because it's more like family heirloom stuff. But at the end of the day, it's just stuff. When I get buried or cremated at the end of my life, none of that stuff is coming with me.
Yeah. So
why are we putting so much energy into stuff?
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah. Like, even just thinking about it, I'm like a little nauseous.
Yeah, no, I agree, because I find that life is, to me, is about getting as many experiences, not as many experiences, but experience all the things that I want, that I desire, and to gather as many memories into my little head box. That's all I'm going to have when I'm 98, if I'm lucky, 98, and dying, maybe in my sleep or whatever. But all I'm going to have when my body isn't going to be functioning anymore are those memories. And I don't want to, this is, I'm the same. Like if I had all of a sudden, if you gave me £1 million or whatever, I'll probably get a boat, sail around the world, or just buy a ticket for around the world and just like enjoy myself, invest some of it, but like it's not to have more things. It'll be to just invest for long-term future to make sure I have money coming in, but the rest would be experiences and just being free.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so if anyone has a breakup or divorce, speak to Melanie, right? How
Yes,
do you make it
I'm happy to give
simple?
some advice. I mean, I'm very familiar with the Canadian law, the Family Law Act, and everything else. For other countries, I don't know. But honestly, when it comes down to dragging it out, fighting over stuff, I promise you, it's not worth it.
Yeah, no, completely. No, no,
It's
absolutely.
not worth, and the resentment just builds, like this dislike and this almost disgust for the other person keeps creeping in, but it has nothing to do with them. It has to do with you holding on and this attachment. So it's not worth it.
So it sounds like you've had like a lot of growing up to do very quickly. I mean,
Yes.
obviously being adopted, before you met your birth family, biological family,
Hmm.
it's there's a lot of things to consider when you grow up, and
Hmm.
but you also had a son at 16. You divorced
Yeah.
really early on as well, around that same
Yeah.
age. How how did you handle, just growing up this fast at 16 with your son, and healthy relationship, and then a divorce? And how did you handle all of this?
Not always with the most grace. One of the things I am very lucky is after I got married and then when the divorce happened, my parents that raised me were there for me. They allowed me to move back in with them, and I lived in their basement. They had a little basement apartment type setup. And without their support, I don't know how I would have managed. I was very determined after my divorce that I wasn't going to be one of those stereotypical teenage moms on welfare having baby after baby with different baby daddies or collecting government money. For some reason, the way I was raised just wouldn't let me consider that as an option. I wanted to give my son the kind of life that I had, even though I didn't have a father for him at the time. And so I set about figuring out with my mom, because my mom was a stay-at-home mom at that point, because I have a younger brother who was there with them, and she was helping me. I would go to school. First, it was night school to get my high school, because I left high school initially, and I got my high school, and then I would go back to full-time school, and I had him in daycare, and she was just, I mean, Wonder Woman has nothing on my mom, just putting it out there. And without their help, I wouldn't have been able to do half the things I set out to do. The way I was raised gave me some of that fire. And then having met my birth mom, I know that fire is also genetic. And I struggled. I first went to high school and I was 3 years older than everybody else. I ended up being in the same class as my younger brother, which was awkward. But I graduated with honors. I managed to accomplish the one thing I told myself I would do. And then after that was the next goal, getting a job. Within 2 months of graduating high school, I got a job. My son was in daycare. And for before and after, I had the support of my mom. I was lucky. And then with time, I was able to get my own little apartment, still close in town. And we kept my son in the schools close to my mom's house so that I had a little bit of help. But I managed to get work and managed to build a career in a field I honestly had no interest in, but I turned out to be really good at. I didn't get a chance to go to full-time college or have university or Frosh Week or any of those kinds of life experiences because I was busy working and building a life for myself and my son in a way that I was determined would give him opportunities that I had growing up. I didn't want him to miss out just because he had a single mom.
Yeah, it sounds like he's giving you sort of like almost like a deeper purpose.
Oh, fuck yes. To
Yeah.
put it blunt.
Yeah.
Honestly, at the age of 15, I was drinking every day at school. I was starting to do some pretty heavy drugs. In fact, I didn't know I was pregnant until I was about 3 months in because I was so irregular with my cycle and I was doing drugs and I didn't know if it was Monday or Friday. I firmly believe if I hadn't gotten pregnant when I did, I probably would have been dead by now of alcohol poisoning or overdose, or really ended up in a much worse situation. But for some reason, my son getting pregnant was a wake-up call. I quit all the drugs and drinking cold turkey. I didn't quit my cigarettes during my pregnancy, which I would have liked to reverse, but the doctors were surprised I didn't miscarry because I went through withdrawal during my pregnancy. But by a miracle, my son is born normal and healthy and just as much of a smartass as his mom. And there was no ill effects of my lifestyle before I got pregnant or that beginning of my pregnancy. I was lucky. And he was my wake-up call. He gave me that deeper purpose. And when I've fallen off the wagon, so to speak, and made some less than wise choices when it came to dating or experiences, him in my life has always brought me back. He's helped me bounce back. He's been my trampoline.
Yeah, he sounds like your little angel. I mean, little, he's 24 now, but
and he's taller than me, thank God, because I'm only 5'2".
You're what, 5'2"?
5'3", 5'1 3/4".
Oh wow, yeah, the 3/4 is important. It is important.
Very important.
Yeah. It's funny because I don't realize that because when I see on your Facebook page, I see you doing those handstands.
Yes,
I want to get into that as well with what you're doing with yoga. And can you tell us a little bit what you're doing with yoga and what brought you to that?
Sure. Well, for the last 3 years, I've been running my own studio called Ignite Evolution Fitness in Brampton. And it's a yoga and Pilates studio primarily, but we've offered other things like functional fitness and acro yoga and things like that. But I started my yoga journey in August of 2010. I weighed in at the age of 32. I weighed in at 260 pounds. And I'm, again, only 5'2". And I don't know what that would be in stone, but 260 pounds is not small.
But that's 130 kilos roughly.
Pretty much, yeah.
Which 5'2" is
crazy.
It's not crazy, but it's definitely substantial for sure.
Yes. And with that weight came a jumble of health issues, from heart problems to diabetes to kidney problems and liver function issues to arthritis and joint I mean, the list went on. I was on almost 17 prescriptions. I think 17 was at my max. 10 for things wrong, 7 for the side effects of the first 10. And my doctor had said, you're probably going to need heart surgery in the next year. And by that point, I had met my birth father, and I knew the journey he had been on because of lifestyle-related health issues that led to his heart problems.
Can you remind us how old you were then?
I was 32.
Okay, so that's young to get heart surgery.
Yeah. And I kind of asked, I said, well, what can I do? And my doctor kind of went, you could try yoga. But he said it with a very kind of sarcastic tone to him. And I latched onto that. And I, during my youth, knew someone who owned a studio in the same town I lived in. And I reached out to her and I sat down with her one day, and we both ended up crying because I needed saving and she needed help in the studio for organization and the office management. And that was a skill I'd been building up since I was 20, working in a corporate environment. And I'm very organized. And my father, who's German, I had a clean desk policy in kindergarten, so we were a perfect fit. And so my fire said, okay, we're going to go to yoga 4 or 5 times a week for a month. We're going to make this shit work. Typical type A personality, right? And by the end of that first month, I was more neurotic and pissed off than ever. People were calling me queen bitch and asking, like, isn't yoga supposed to chill you out? And I was like, this is bullshit. This is yoga hippy dippy shit. They're a cult. And because I didn't get it. But then in that last week, when I was ready to say this is not working, I might as well give up, I had one class and the teacher always played the same music and pretty much the same sequence, so nothing was new. And there was one pose, pigeon pose, that involves you bringing, one leg in front and resting on the outside with your back leg stretched out behind you. And that one always made me angry, to the point where I wanted to throw the yoga block at the teacher's head. And I thought to myself, today is the day I'm going to throw it. I moved the block out of the way and I sunk into the pose. And I took a deep breath and I exhaled. And on that exhale, I started crying. And tears were streaming down my eyes, but I wasn't, it wasn't like a soap opera, bawling my eyes. It was just these tears. And all I heard inside me was this voice saying, I get it. And that was the first day that I did not go to Burger King after my yoga class for my make me feel better meal. I went home and I had fruit. And that triggered a huge change in my life, where I decided I was going to remove one thing from my food every week. I had tried every diet and program up until that point, from the cabbage soup diet to Jenny Craig and Weight Watcher. I mean, everything. And nothing had worked. I didn't stick to it. So I said, okay, I'm going to give up pop this week and start writing down how I feel. And then the next week I got rid of potato chips. And the next week I got rid of candy, like gummy bear candy. The next week I got rid of chocolate. And I progressively removed everything out of my diet until I was a gluten-free vegan for about 3 years. And it sounds extreme, and it was, but it's what my body needed to detox. Well, within 5 years, I dropped about 70 pounds and I was off all my prescriptions. And I was loving yoga. I was taking yoga teacher training a year after I started my journey, not to teach, but to learn more for myself. I never thought I'd end up teaching, let alone running my own business. And after that is when I discovered weight training. A friend of mine took me to see her personal trainer to do a friend workout, and I fell in love with the weights and I felt powerful, and it's like, whoa, what is this? So I got hooked on that, which then led me to some kickboxing and some MMA stuff. And now I'm a lover of all movement regardless. Although I'm still not a big fan of jogging, but I'll do it. I've always had a love for dance. I grew up doing dance in Germany, and yoga helped me to reconnect to my body. And through that, reconnecting to myself that I had lost over the years.
Yeah. No, there's thank you for that. There's a few things you said, and I'm like, I know you can't see me right now, but sort of I'm nodding, going, yes, oh yeah, uh-huh. And just let it sink in as well. And I think there's a few things, if you don't mind, I'd like to bring up. I love your honesty about when you were saying about the weight, and also it has to be taken into consideration with your height, because there's something that, now I don't know how you feel about this, but there's something I find a little bit sometimes of a shame that there's not a discernment. Sometimes, to do with the health and the beauty industry. Okay. So when, people sometimes say, oh, you fat shaming people because not to me, but I'm just saying, I read this in the papers, and I mean, I used to struggle with my weight as well. I've yo-yoed quite a bit. Never been, I was never obese or anything like that, but I sort of would go up 3 sizes in clothes quite easily. And then, I just could never really find the balance until a few years ago. But what people don't say when it comes to the weight is no one is saying that big is not beautiful, and there's very much this whole marketing at the moment about almost encouraging everyone to be I guess bigger or something like that. There's one thing there's a discernment people are not making. There is some people are more naturally curvy than others. Some people are just naturally slim. And both of those are healthy. But when someone is overly has on clearly too much weight on, we're not saying that it's not beautiful, because I do actually really like a woman who's quite big. Actually, I find that really beautiful. But personally, I also know that there are a few health problems going on, and very few women are open to say that actually they are in pain when they wake up. Sometimes when they get to a certain weight, it's not funny anymore. It's got nothing to do with beauty. And saying, you had all these other side effects. There's not just pain, there's diabetes, and you had heart issues and all this medication. So it's
I couldn't go up one set of stairs to play with my son without huffing and puffing and needing a 10-minute break.
There you go. So, and that's, I think that's such an important discernment, no one's talking about the beauty. It's to do with how do you feel? And this goes back to what you were talking about yoga. What's interesting and what a lot of people I think do not realize is that a lot of people use this as a workout thing, but actually yoga is a feeling thing, and it's a very internal thing. And
Oh gosh,
right?
yes.
And like, I mean, there's also certain positions for me, like that. Some asanas that either I feel really angry, or it makes me feel really sad, or I feel a lot of love,
Yes.
it is, all of them are, and it's to do with also your body is retaining emotion, your muscle memory, even on a scientific
Oh yeah.
level, right? So, people have like tense shoulder when they're stressed out, or they have a sore tummy, like they have really bad stomach ache when they're stressed. So, yeah.
And just for the record, by
Yeah,
the way,
go on.
like I am still considered very overweight according to the body mass index. I'm 165 pounds, give or take, and I'm 5'2". So I'm still considered curvy or plus size. But at the same time, I can now tell you that my last EKG, my last heart check with my doctor, I have a heart of a 25-year-old.
There you go. But the thing is, the way
I did not have to have surgery.
Yeah.
And so I'm still curvy. I have boobs, and I must say, I have a really nice ass. But I'm also thick thighs, and I have belly, and I have sagging skin, and I have stretch marks. So for me, it wasn't about, I want to lose weight to be beautiful. It was, I want to get healthy so that I can live longer and be there for my son, maybe have grandkids one day. To me, the idea of having heart surgery at 32 was like, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. But it spoke a lot to my feelings of self-worth at the time. I'd gone through relationships that I stayed in longer than I should because my weight was dictating my feelings of worth as well.
Yeah.
I can't get any better because no one likes this weight. I was blaming my fat for bad relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yes.
Because it kept me from looking at myself. I used it as a shield in a way to say, okay, the reason they broke up with me is because I'm fat, not because there's anything wrong with me.
Yeah.
But it stopped me from looking at myself until I went to yoga. And that's when I started doing the internal work.
And also, I mean, I know you mentioned about the weight, but actually weight on the scale, I never look at the weight because also, it doesn't take into consideration muscles, bone structure, all of that. I think you can tell if you have a healthy weight or not. You can just see, and you know how you feel. You can tell by how you feel, by how you work out. And so, there's a lot of things with the scale. I think obviously when it comes to the weight you had prior, when you had your health issues, that's obviously a number that has to be looked at. But I think after that, and I mean, anyone can look at your Facebook page, you're out there doing your yoga pose and stuff, and you're feeling very healthy. And so weight in that at that time doesn't matter because now you're in a better feeling place. And it's so, I mean, I haven't had the scale in years. I don't want to, because it just makes you become obsessed, right? You go, oh my God, because weight fluctuates. But I also love the fact that you mentioned about the weights, because that's actually something that's really great for women. I do weights as well, and I'm now getting such amazing result with weights without having to spending tons of time at the gym, and it's really good for women. And if you can mix that with yoga, that's amazing. And all your other workouts.
There's such a misconception about bulking up with weights. You do not bulk up with weights. No. We don't have enough testosterone in our bodies. But even my mom, who was like a fitness aerobics instructor, she was hesitant about me using weights. Oh, should you be lifting that heavy? And in the end, I listened to myself, and it goes back to that slow fire that started when I was 16 of learning to listen to myself, my soul. We have a soul, and it speaks, and it's so quiet sometimes. And then the world gets so loud, but it's there.
Yeah. No, and also, to be honest, to bulk up, you have to really consciously put so much effort. I mean, we know how painful it would be to bulk up. I mean, just to do weights to maintain is like, but to bulk up, you'd have to eat a lot, getting all your protein powders, and you'd work out on a whole. We have to work out on a whole different level. So I know there's this fear of bulking up, but no, it's hard work to do.
Yes.
So okay. So you were talking about your journey and the health scare and how you, how you got yourself into a different path and living a different lifestyle. Are you still a vegan?
No, actually, for the last, I'd say 3-4 years, I started introducing other foods into my diet slowly, carefully, because I recognized that my body, not only had it plateaued, but I found my energy levels were really impacted. And because I was working a full-time 40-hour-a-week corporate job and teaching 7 days a week, private clients, running a studio, I slowly started introducing some meat again. I still am very limited in dairy. I have an addiction to goat cheese. So that's usually, if I have cheese, it'll be goat cheese. But my dairy is still very limited because I found, this is again through journaling and really paying attention to how I feel. If I introduce too much dairy, I start getting inflammation in my joints again, especially my hands and my elbows. And that just limits my movement. And it doesn't feel good. And then I get a little bit of delightful flatulence, which is not sexy by any means. And then I'm also very limited in my gluten in breads and pastas because I just found it makes me tired. It makes me feel bloated, constipation and pains. It doesn't make me feel very good. So if I do have it, it's because I'm consciously choosing it and I'm making an exception. But I do eat meats, mostly chicken, some steak. I do enjoy seafood, but again, it's still very limited, but it's to give my body more whole foods versus processed protein powders all the time, which is something I still do, but not all the time anymore.
Yeah, so you found a way, what works for you and what doesn't. And I guess, like you've said, something that's very important is learning to listen to your own body. And that's definitely something I'm always trying to hammer home with all my clients. Yes. Is that, for example, dairy may be fine for someone, but not for someone else. And again, there's a genetic level to that too. There's all kinds of things to take into consideration. And also nurture, where your body is at that time. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, absolutely. I think listening to yourself, that's definitely, and it sounds like that's a theme from this whole interview, actually, that you've sort of learned to listen to yourself and know what's best for you.
Yeah, and it's taken a long time, and I still don't get it right every time. But it's a learning journey, and when we do it with compassion and forgiveness with ourselves, some amazing things can happen.
So where are you now, and what's the next thing for you?
Well, after 3 years, my lease with my studio is coming to an end. It's taken me some time to listen again to myself, but I realized it's time to close the doors. And part of it's, the lease is expiring. To renew the lease, he's going to increase the rent, and the studio just doesn't bring in enough revenue for me to continue. And as much as it hurts to say goodbye, because I've built an amazing small community that just lights me up, it's time to close that door. I was going to try and sell it, but the sale fell through. So now I'm literally closing the doors at the end of May. And after that, it's a bit scary because I don't know what's next. I've been working on a novel for several years, and I'm in the final editing stages of it. And it's one of 5 books I want to publish. And it's more of a fiction, story, but the story behind it is very much about my life story. It's not written about me. It's like historic fantasy fiction, but the theme of women's primarily finding their power, finding their strength, being faced with some really tough decisions from, do we follow our family's expectations or live a life of our own choosing, to we have superpowers, whether it's empathy, whether it's love, whether it's compassion. Those are frickin' superpowers, girl. So I want to write more novels. I've been juggling a 40-hour work week plus all my spare time in the studio for the last 3 years, and I'm hitting a burnout stage. I'm exhausted. And I think initially I'm going to take a little step back for myself. I'm looking at different possibilities, and nothing's written in stone. And for the first time, I don't have a checklist for my plan.
Yeah, so you're in this wonderful stage of actually you don't know what's next. So that's quite exciting, scary, but exciting too, right?
Yes. I've grown up organized and very business oriented. And for the last 20 years, I've built a career. I work for a major corporation right now, and I have schedules and checklists and all these things. And for the first time, I am surrendering the outcome. I think of the goddess Artemis with the bow and arrow. She built strength to pull back the bow. If you've ever done archery. That bow is not easy. She learned how to place the arrow in the right nook. She learned how to aim. She learned how to check the wind and the sun and watch for the targets. But once she lets go of that arrow, she has to trust that her aim is true. She has to trust that she will hit that target. But she's put all the work in ahead of time. And right now, I've put in a lot of work, but I'm surrendering the outcome.
And that's a good analogy. I wonder, you mentioned doing 40-hour week plus the studio. So when you say 40-hour week means that you have a full-time job on top of having a yoga studio?
Yes,
Wow.
I work Monday to Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m.
So when do you have time for the studio? When do you put the time in?
I do it before I go to work if I teach a 6 a.m. class, and then I'll go straight to work from my studio. And then I go straight to the studio after work. I'm there at 4:30 and I leave at around 9:30.
And you do also on the weekend?
Yes.
And so, so this is really interesting to me. How also, I mean, everything has been, but this is something I didn't actually realize. So how do you get the willpower, the strength to get up so early and then go after work? Like you have a full-time job. How do you find that strength and the willpower?
Well, I've been asked a lot, how can you manage 2 jobs? Well, I am so passionate about the teaching, about moving my body and showing others what they're capable of. The idea behind Ignite Evolution Fitness is ignite, evolve, and rediscover you. And I realize it's not just the studio mantra, it's my own. And the people nourish me. They don't drain me. The teaching, the classes, they don't drain me. They feed me. Some of the studio work like bookkeeping and updating websites, which I had to teach myself. I figured stuff out on my own. I didn't know anything about website building, and I fuddled through it. Those are the things that sometimes would feel a bit draining, or the pressures of posting on social media twice a day with the right hashtags to get the studio visible. That's been stressful at times, but honestly, I've gotten comfortable with my day job that I can just put my 40 hours in without working overtime. And then the minute I walk into the studio, I take my shoes off and I go barefoot. And there's this shift that happens and I'm ready.
Yeah. I like the way you're saying that it's feeding you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's important. I think especially like, in business, when you have your own, is to stay true to what feels good. You have to do the things you don't like. I mean, like corporate taxes is like, oh my God, and again, same with social media. I'm not big on social media, and I probably should. I don't like that word, but maybe I should force myself a bit more, doing more with it. But there are things that I love. I love the teaching part. I love creating the content. I love doing the Facebook lives, and I need to start to do more videos. But sometimes you get lost in the other things that has to happen. And I think what you said is so important, is that I could just picture you going into the studio, take off your shoes, and I literally just felt my shoulders go, whew, like that. Yep. And I think that feel good thing is probably what gets you keep going, right? It's like with your son, you have that purpose. That purpose kept you going, right? To always do what was the right thing, or to at least to aim for something, Yeah, that feeling of purpose is so important, and but purpose can only feel good, but it has to feel good, because otherwise it's not really a purpose, I think, So yeah, definitely that it feels good. And of course, there are going to be things you don't like to do on the side, like the admin of the website, the social media, and
Yeah, there's a book out there, The Strength Finder, Marcus Buckingham, I think. I'm probably getting the author wrong, but our strengths strengthen us. They don't weaken us. They don't make us tired. And they light us up. And you can tell when something lights a person up because you can see their whole body transform. And I'm good at my day job, but it doesn't strengthen me. But my teaching strengthens me, nourishes me.
Yes, you just hit on something actually quite profound, because there's a difference because you can be good at a lot of things. And sometimes you're good at something. There's an expression, maybe you know it, I can't remember it. Like
be careful what you're good at, because you'll do it for the rest of your life.
Right. Yeah. Yep. You're too good for your own good. You're too smart for your own good. Because you can be good. We can all be good at loads of things. A lot of people are good at a lot of things. But actually, I never thought about the fact where the strength is actually what lights you up and doesn't drain you. So there's things that are more, that's to do with your purpose. What's that thing that's going to move you forward in life? What's that thing that you bring to the world, right? Whether it's your neighbors, your loved ones, all of that. What's that thing that lights you up that you just can't stop doing? Like you'll do it all day, every day almost, and it just lights you up. Yeah. Yeah. Strengths Finder. Yeah. I can't remember the author either, but yes, I've done that one years ago, actually, just before I started my own business. Yeah. And
another one that's great that talks about this kind of thing is Danielle Laporte's The Fire Starter Sessions.
Oh, can you tell about it? Because I know, I know of her. I've listened to some of her videos, but I don't know what the Fire Starter Session is.
The Fire Starter Sessions is an amazing book that walks you through, I believe it's 16 chapters, if I remember correctly. And 16 chapters maybe. And each one is these amazing prompts. And it really is to start asking you the question of, what do you like to do? And what is easy for you to do? What lights you up? And kind of using your connections and, prompting questions that really make you dig a little deeper. Like if you were to be at a cocktail party, for example, and have, say, 5 people, anyone in the world that you could talk to in a casual environment and get them to give you those wisdom nuggets, who would it be? Would it be Oprah Winfrey on building an empire? Would it be Pink on being a rebel musician? Would it be Shiva Ray because of her amazing yoga life? Would it be Michelle Obama on being in the spotlight? Like, if you could pick anyone, who would it be? And what would you learn from them? What would they give you? And you use that. I love her works. I absolutely love her works. And I've met some amazing people through the communities that are part of her world. But the Fire Starter Sessions is brilliant for anyone, especially entrepreneurs, but anyone that is feeling like they've lost touch with themselves a little bit and need to find that again.
I like to hear the second part of the, so let's say if you had your 5 guests at a cocktail party, and so when you say, what would they give you? What would you want to know? What's the next part of that? What is that telling you as a person?
Well, from there, it's, why are we not getting that information on our own? Why aren't we already doing it? If, for example, on your list was, say it was, Pink on being a rebel singer, that conversation, why aren't you singing at karaoke? Why aren't you going to open mic nights? Why aren't you writing your own stuff now? What are you waiting for? Because you can start at any point in your life. It doesn't matter how old, how young you are. You can start reconnecting to yourself, rediscovering you through these prompts. And it starts giving you an opportunity to really identify what lights you up. It's called the Fire Starter Sessions for a reason. It's to start your fire. And she says fire starter, but my philosophy now is we've always had that fire in us. That spark is always there. We've just lost it, like within us.
Yeah.
And for me, it's not the fire starter, it's the fire revealer sessions in my mind.
Yeah, it just sometimes, it like any fire needs oxygen, right? So you need to let it, it needs to breathe to ignite and to take shape and form and build and grow and put out some heat out there.
Yeah.
Are there any tips you'd like to tell us? And what would you like to share with us?
Oh, well, the list is long if I'm given a chance to ramble, so I'll try to streamline it a bit. But it comes down to that motto that I created initially for the studio, but ignite, evolve, and rediscover. So you can create space for anyone to help ignite that spark for you because it's already there. From physical movement, from changing jobs to getting out of unhappy relationships, you already have that spark. It's already there. Stop looking outside of yourself for it because it's there. It might trigger it might require another person to make you aware of it, or a situation or experience, but you've always had it. And then the evolve part, I firmly believe that we're imperfect, perfect beings. And I don't think any of us need to change who we are at the core. Our soul comes into this world perfect. I think evolution is a much healthier way of looking at our life and our habits and how we want to show up in this world, because it implies that there's nothing wrong with you. When you say, you need to change this, it's like saying something's wrong with you, that you're broken, you need fixing. I don't think any of us are broken or need fixing. We're always whole and complete. Our life experiences sometimes create little dents and little cracks and scratches, but it doesn't make us any less whole. So evolution is my preferred way of talking about, when I made my life change. No, I evolved my life to a place where I'm healthier and I'm happier, I'm more confident, and I'm more in touch with who I am. I'm back in touch with that girl that used to climb trees and ride horses and climb cherry trees and eat those cherries till I was almost sick. I don't eat till I'm sick anymore, but the girl that was fearless. And then finally that rediscovering through the spark, through the evolution, rediscovering who we are. Watch children, and they are so pure. I ask anyone to go watch a YouTube video of giggling toddlers and not laugh. They are so uninhibited. They are so pure. And to reconnect, rediscover that parts of ourselves is always possible. And it doesn't matter where you are in life or what hardships you have faced, what divorces you've gone through, what life experiences you've had. You always are one breath away from that possibility. And with all of that, take a leap of faith, take risks. This lifetime we have is short enough as is. Don't live with regrets. Don't live with resentment. Just those leaps of faith. I went skydiving for the first time last year. It's something I never thought I would do. And I'm glad I did it. I was strapped to like a 75-year-old man that I could have broken in half, but I did it. So why do we live in fear? So stop being afraid. And this list went longer than your 3, but I hope this suffices.
No, this is amazing, Melanie. Thank you. I have everything you said.
Thank you.
Can you tell us where people can find you?
Yes. So I have my Instagram and my Facebook, and you can find me under Melanie Frome. And I've got my own personal website, which is sadly a little bit out of date, but will be updated very soon as I transition from the studio to my personal branding again. But it's melaniefrome.com. And I'm going to be doing some workshops. My novel hopefully will be published this year. I'm working on that. So stay tuned for more. And that's basically where you can find me. And if anyone ever wants to send me a DM or a private message or email me, I'm always happy to share the spark, to share the fire, because I was lucky enough to have some people to share theirs with me along the way and make me realize, hey, I got this. So yes.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Melanie. And I'm definitely looking forward to see, what happens with your novel and what the next chapter for you is.
Yes, me too.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye on your website. And look, thank you so much for today.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye-bye, Melanie.
Bye.
And that's our episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to rate, review, subscribe on iTunes or anywhere else you listen to podcasts from. Drop me questions or any topics you'd like me to cover next time. Please send me a message. You can easily find me on angie-s.com. So that's angies.com, spelled angie-s.com. Come and join me on the website or find me on Instagram at Health Lifestylist. All the links are in the show notes. And until then,
using health inappropriately.